But when it comes to wudu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been very specific about the way that wudu needs to be performed. Naturally, the way that wudu needs to be performed as per the Quran is specific, but then the Sunnah of the Prophet has explained in more details the exact steps that need to be followed. So where in the Quran does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mandate when you stand up for prayer, when you stand up to establish prayer, what must you do? You must wash your face and you must wash your hands. Ila marafiq. Marafiq means up to your elbows. Wamsahu bi ru'usikum wa arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn. And you must wipe a part of your head and you must wipe the top of your feet up to the ankle, up to the ka'ab. Now, what is the ka'ab? We'll have a discussion about what does ka'ab mean in Arabic. So in Surah 5, ayah number 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mandating the performance of wudu when it comes to performance of salat. So what does wudu consist of? Al-wudu consists of two things. It consists of ghaslatain and mashatain, yani two ghusls, two washes, and two wipings. Now, one of the things that we need to discuss here is that depending on how this ayah is interpreted, some people have decided that when it comes to the performance of wudu, especially when it comes to the washing of the hands, that the washing of the hands can be done from the elbow down or can be done from the tip of the fingers all the way up to the elbow. Now we know that in the school of Ahlul Bayt, the washing of the hands can only be done downwards, from elbow down to the fingers. But if you look at the ayah here, the reason why some people have decided that the washing can happen both ways is if you look at this part here, where it says, Faghsilu, wash your face and your hands, ila al-marafiq. Ila means here to, right? Ila here is a harf jar, it's a preposition. It means wash your hands to your elbows. Now, naturally, when you first think about washing to, the thing that might come to mind is that I need to wash to my elbows, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. But here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying ila to talk about the direction. He's talking about ila to talk about the boundary or the part of the hand that needs to be washed. So when he says ila al-marafiq, it means you need to wash your hand that covers up to the elbow, not that goes from your fingers to the elbow. So if you use this to interpret that now I can wash my hand going from here all the way, ila al-marafiq, that would be wrong. And one of the examples that I can give you is that suppose you have a painter that comes to your room and he wants to paint a wall from the bottom up to, let's say, the top of the floor, or maybe top of the ceiling, or maybe up to that point that you see there. You will tell the painter that I want you to paint the wall from the bottom until the part just before the ceiling. Does that mean when I'm telling him to go from the bottom up till that part, am I saying you need to paint from the bottom? Or am I telling him that you need to paint that portion, going from that part to that part? Whether you do it from top to bottom or bottom to top, that's not what I mean. It's the same thing here. Ila here is not prescribing the method of direction. It is only being used here to capture the part of the arm that needs to be washed, which includes the elbows. So that's why the to the elbows, ila al-marafiq, does not mean to start washing from the fingertips and end to the elbows. And because to is not associated with from, it's not saying minal fingertips ila al-marafiq. It's not saying that, right? So here to means including. And that's why you find that in another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here, to orphans restore their properties when they reach their age. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is also using the word ila, but ila here means that up from the time of their, when it comes to, by the time they reach the age of puberty, then you can give them their property back. So ila does not necessarily mean the direction, it means the area that is to be used. Okay, before starting your wudu, what do you need to do? Before starting, you first need to make sure that there is no obstacle on the parts of the body that need to be washed, right? So anything, when you're washing your face and you're washing your hands, you need to make sure that there is nothing that is acting as a barrier that is going to prevent the water from going through to the skin. Things such as, you know, if there's paint on your face, if there's a lot of oil or anything like a substance that you use that is so much on the face that is going to act as a barrier, right? For women also, putting nail polish, foundation, makeup, any kind of material that's put on the body that's going to act as a barrier needs to be removed first. Even when it comes to the ring, as an example, that you wear on your hands, right? Because you need to wash every part of your hand. Sometimes you'll find that the ring is going to be so tight that it may not allow water to go inside the ring. So you need to ensure that you must remove the ring and then wash your hand, if it's possible. And then you must also make sure that you remove any najasa from the body. There must not be any najasa on the parts that need to be washed. Yes? So all the parts that need to be washed need to be pak and they need to be tahir. Well, the water that you're using to do wudu has to be tahir and has to be mutlaq. There's two different types of waters. There's mutlaq water, which is called absolute water. That's the kind of water that we know about that we can call water, such as the water that comes from our taps, the water in the wells, in the river, in the seas, in the oceans. That's called pure water. But there's certain things, there's another water that's called mudaf water, right? Added water. Things where you add something to that water and it becomes something else. So for example, orange water, right? Pomegranate water, watermelon water. This may be called water, but it is not actual water. It's mudaf water, it's added water. And this kind of water cannot be used to either perform wudu or to remove najasa from your body. So you cannot take orange water or you cannot take rose water and use it to remove najasa. That is not allowed. And you cannot use rose water to perform wudu as well. The place of making wudu, sorry, it's a typo here, is that you need to ensure that you've got the permission of the person who owns that place. If that place is a privately owned place, that you have the permission of that person to be able to perform wudu, unless you're absolutely sure that he will not mind, right? Naturally, when you go to someone's house, you go to a Muslim's house, you can go to the bathroom and you can perform wudu, because naturally you will have this understanding that you will not mind if you're performing wudu. But at certain instances where you're unsure, you need to get that level of itminan that the person will not mind, because it's a private property. The niyyah, when you perform wudu, you need to make sure that you have the intention of performing wudu for what? Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qurbatan ilallah. If you perform wudu, but for the intention of trying to get cool, you know, it's a hot day and you perform wudu, and your intention is that I'm performing wudu because I'm trying to feel cold because it's a hot day. Your intention is not to get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So niyyah is very important. It doesn't have to be vocalized from your tongue. You don't need to say when you're performing wudu that I am performing wudu wajib qurbatan ilallah. As long as it's in your mind, that intention, that if someone was to ask you what you're doing, you can tell them that I'm doing this wudu for closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is niyyah. So it doesn't naturally have to be vocalized, but in your mind, the niyyah needs to be the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when performing wudu. Okay. Now, how to perform wudu? I'm sure most of you here all know how to perform wudu, but let's just do a recap. When you perform wudu, you must start with your face first. And when you start with your face, you must start from face up and down. You cannot go from down to up, right? That is not allowed. Going from top to bottom. But where do you start from the top? You start from the top where the hair grows on the top of the forehead to the bottom of the chin. So it's basically the area that you can see here. Most of the times when you look at your hair, you can see the roots where the hair starts growing. That is the boundary from where you start, and you go all the way to the bottom of your chin. This is the length of the area that needs to be covered vertically, right? You need to wash your face once is obligatory, twice is mustahab, 3 times is haram. Now, there's a very important point here you guys need to understand. When it comes to washing your face, what that means is that when you take water in your hands and you put it on your face, that does not mean it's washing. You can take water in your hands and put it on your face multiple times. But when you do a proper washing, in the sense going from top to bottom, that's called one washing, right? So you can continue putting water on your face as many times as you want. But when you do it going from top to bottom, that is your first washing. And then after that, when you do it again, there Ayatollah Sistani says that there is a precautionary, you should not put water multiple times when you're doing it for the second time. Just take it one time, put it on your head and do it the second time when one go. But the first one, you can wash your face properly with soap. That's not wudu. As soon as you do your niyyah, And in your niyyah, you say that now I'm washing my face. In your mind, that first washing is when you actually start from the top to the bottom, even though you may have put water on your face many times before that. Okay, so don't think that as soon as I put water on my face once, that's my first washing. That's not your first washing. That was vertical. What is the width? The width is from the thumb to the top of the middle finger, right? This is the width that needs to be covered. So when you're washing your face, this part, as soon as you stretch your hand out on your face, the face that is covered by the length of your middle finger, top of your middle finger to your thumb, is what is obligatory to be washed. If you find that maybe there are certain parts of your face that you have not been able to wash, it is okay for you to wash the boundaries, the sides of the face as well, to ensure that you've covered the main parts of the face that need to be washed. So as a precaution, adjacent areas not covered by the hand should be washed also, just to be safe. For beards, majority of you who have beards here, if the skin can be seen through the beard, if your beard is not thick enough and the skin can be seen, you need to ensure the water reaches the skin. But if your beard is thick enough that the skin cannot be seen, the water on the beard is enough. You do not need to go all the way to the skin. That's on the face, right? Wash from hands from elbow downwards to fingertips. Now we come to the washing of the hands. The washing of the hands starts from the top, from the elbow, marafiq, the elbows, all the way to the tip of the fingertips. You go upwards, it makes your wudu invalid. You have to go down, right? That's for hands. Again, another thing, you can put water as many times on your hand. The first time that you come is your first washing. So it doesn't mean that when you take water in your hand, in your left hand, and you put it on your right hand, you can put water as many times as you want. As soon as you do the first, that's called the first washing. Wiping the head so wiping the head from okay, I'm not sure why this is an old presentation that I have, but basically when it comes to the wiping of the head, how does the wiping need to happen? The area that needs to be wiped is the front quarter of your head. This is your entire head. The front quarter is what needs to be wiped. And even here, not the entire area of your head needs to be wiped. What is the recommended precaution? The recommended precaution is that the length of wiping should be the length of one finger and the width should be 3. So if you think about it, you take your 3 hands, you do it here, and you just come down like this so that you've covered the length of a finger and the width is 3 fingers. That is the area that needs to be wiped. So if you know that this is the finger that needs to be covered, you go anywhere from the quarter, you just come down and you wipe it as long as it doesn't touch the face. Yes, Mike. Yeah, it needs to be minimum of 3 fingers. Again, this is recommended precaution, meaning that this is not a fatwa, but it is recommended. If you find another marja of the same caliber who gives a different opinion, you can follow that. But if you can't, then you have to follow the precaution, which is that it needs to be 3 fingers. A lot of people do more than 3. Minimum is 3. More can be fine. So you can do the whole hand also, provided that minimum length is like one. If you look here, it's like this, right? That's the length that needs to be washed, minimum, and this is the width that needs to be washed. Now, if you do a little bit more than that, that is fine, provided your hand doesn't mix, your water on your hand doesn't mix with the moisture that's on your face already. That's very important. You only go up to the top. You do not start mixing with the hand, with the water on your hand. You cannot mix the moisture that's on your hand with the moisture that's on your head already, because then you can no longer do masa on your feet. You can only do the masa with the moisture that's left on your head. Now, for those people who have longer hair, especially for women, you will find them removing the hair or parting it because they need to go and get to the skin. So if you have hair that is long, in the sense that when you brush your hair, it goes from one side to the other, or it falls down on your shoulders, for you just doing masa on the top is not sufficient. You need to part your hair and you need to find the skin, and that's where you need to do wudu. So that's most of the times for women, unless you have long hair. Wiping should be done using existing moisture on the hands. If moisture is not enough, suppose that it's a very hot day, you've done your washing of your hands and your face, by the time you get to your masa, your hand is dry. It's possible. What do? You take your moisture from your beard. If there's any beard moisture left, you take it from there and you do it there. If you don't have, you can make your hand wet again, but then you must do tayammum also. You must do tayammum also, right? Yes, if it gets, if you have beard moisture, you can. So by the time, let's say that when you do your head, you still have moisture in your hands. Yeah. But by the time you get to your feet, now the moisture is dried up, so you can still take moisture from the beard. And then you have to do tayammum then, yes. Okay. Yeah. Because you are not allowed to take, you're not allowed to make your hand wet basically once it's wet already. But instances might happen where it becomes dry. Then what do you do? Then you have to do tayammum also. Wipe the feet from the tip of the toes back to the ankle. That's the masa of your foot. That's basically saying that you need to do it from the tip of your toe all the way to the ankle. Now that's where the question is that what does this kabain, what does ankle mean? In Arabic, ankle can have three meanings. It can mean the top bone of the foot, which is this thing here, right? Or it can mean the joint between the foot and the shin. It's this thing here. Or it means the ankle, which is like this part here. So according to most of the Maraja, you start from the top of the toe and you come down all the way up to the ankle, which is right here. You don't need to do the entire foot. You just need to make your hand move. It doesn't need to move entirely. You just need to move it in such a way that you can say it was wiping your top of the foot. Okay. Things that invalidate wudu. Now you perform wudu. What are the things that are going to invalidate wudu? Number one, urinating will invalidate wudu, right? Including the ruling of urinating is similar, moisture that comes out after urinating and before performing istibra, right? Istibra we can talk about inshallah in a future lesson. But point is that if you don't perform istibra and you feel that there's a liquid that's come out, then you need to perform wudu again because that liquid is not going to be pak. Defecating is also going to make your wudu naqis. Passing wind of the stomach and the intestine. When you sleep, that makes your wudu void, right? And what does that sleeping mean? Sleeping doesn't just mean that you just close your eyes. Sleeping means that you get into a state where you're no longer able to see and hear. So when you actually fall asleep. But so if your eyes are closed, but you can still hear, you're not sleeping. You're still awake. Things that cause one to lose his mind, such as insanity, intoxication, and unconsciousness, will make your wudu void. Istihada for a woman and being in a state of janaba is also going to cause you to invalidate your wudu, and anything that causes you to perform ghusl is going to invalidate your wudu. Okay. Non-obligatory issues. Brothers, this is one thing I want to mention here. This is not wajib, but it is very much recommended. In fact, some have also said it's haram. Don't waste water. When you're performing your wudu, try as much as possible that you minimize the use of wudu. A lot of the times what we do is we keep the tap running while we're performing wudu. Try that every time you're performing your wudu, that you close the tap in the middle. Yes, it becomes a little bit of takes practice, but don't waste water. Don't let the tap water running. Washing of the hands, rinsing of the nose and the mouth are not wajib parts of wudu. They are mustahab. You can perform them. It's good to do it, but it's not wajib. And remain in wudu as often as you can. It's good for your spiritual purity as well. So, according to the so far is that after your wudu, you aren't allowed to get without washing your hands. After the first masa, you can't touch anything now. It's not advised. So, you can't really tap into the water. You need to ask someone else. So, in such a case, you can show me, but I haven't seen that anywhere. Yes, there needs to be a succession when it comes to wudu, right? There needs to be a sequence. So firstly, you need to make sure that when you perform your wudu, you do it in the correct sequence. You cannot wash your hand before your head. You cannot do your legs before your head, masa. And also when you do your feet, it is recommended you start with your right and then your left. So there has to be a sequence, but at the same time, there shouldn't be a gap in between the sequence, in between the actions that you're performing. So if let's say that I am continuously closing the tap while I'm doing my wudu, that does not consider it to be such a long gap that it causes your wudu to become delayed. So it's not an Ayatul Sistani's where it's anything that makes it a gap that's significant enough for you to say that this break the wudu. But I can show you. Yeah.
What about if you touch something like a cloth? Like if you're trying to lift your shirt.
That's fine. That's fine. A gap is what you will consider it to be that there has been a gap, as in the action has been broken. But when you're in the motion of performing wudu, you can roll up your sleeves because now you need to wash your hands. That's fine. That's not a gap. Gap is that you perform your hand and then you go out of the bathroom, you perform something, you come back and then you do another one. That is not allowed. In ghusl janaba, inshallah, when you talk about it, that is fine. But in wudu, you need to have a succession and you need to have no gap in the middle. That is considered to be a gap that the action is broken. Okay. Now, why do Muslims differ when it comes to wudu? Why is it that certain sects wipe their hands or wipe their feet and wipe their heads, but certain sects wash their heads and wash their feet? A question we need to ask ourselves is that our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had performed wudu publicly for over 20 years. He never did it he did it privately, but he also did it publicly, right? So there would have been enough witnesses who would have seen him performing the wudu. So we cannot say that we do not know how the Prophet performed wudu, hence people have come up with their own opinions. No, Prophet was seen publicly performing wudu many times. So there would have been eyewitnesses who would have seen the way he would have done it. Secondly, the Quran also explicitly mentions how to perform wudu. The Quran explicitly says, وَغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ yani waghsil, yani ghusl. Wash your face and your hands, وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ وَامْسَهُ بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ and wipe. Masa is there. The verbs are actually there in the Quran. Wash and wipe. Wash your hands, and wash your face. Wipe your top of your head and wipe your feet. So if the Quran is also explicitly describing how the wudu is supposed to be performed, why is it that now there are certain differences? It really comes down to, in some instances, the interpretation of the ayah, especially when it comes to Arabic grammar. Because if you look at the way that arjulakum is pronounced, it can either mean washing or it can either mean wiping, depending on whether the naam is mansoob or majroor. Now, this is where Arabic grammar comes in, and I know most of you might not understand it. You see, if you look on in the ayah, you will find that right before arjulakum, you find it says wamsahu bi ru'usikum, but here you find arjulakum. This lam will have a fatha, right? Now, okay, I know you will get confused because I'm going to talk Arabic grammar. Anytime in a verbal sentence, the object of the action always ends with a fatha at the end. That's what you call mansoob. But there are certain prepositions that if you add to a noun, they make it majroor, meaning they end with a kasra. Now, before this word, we had biru'usikum. Ru'us means what? Ras, head. What was that letter you saw right before ru'us? Ba. Biru'usikum. This ba makes it majroor. So it makes your ru'usi, not ru'usa. But arjulakum, in some instances, some people pronounce the arjulakum with arjulikum because they say that the ba on the ru'us also applies to your feet. Or some of them just say that it should be lam with a fatha, arjulakum. To be honest, it doesn't really make a difference because the problem is that some people say that this arjulakum goes back to waghsulu wujuhakum wa aydiyakum. That wash your hands, wash your feet, wash your face, wash your hands, and wash your feet. And only the head needs to be needs to be wiped. It comes down to the interpretation. But if you think about it, in the ayah, let me go back to the ayah. Okay. Wash your face and your hands to the elbows. And wipe, you see this bar here? Biru'usikum. You see the scene has got a kasra. This should usually be a dhamma. Every noun ends with a dhamma at the end. It's called a marfu ending. Biru'usikum wa arjulakum. Some people say that this arjulakum, this feet here, goes back to faghsilu. So they say that wash your face and your hands and your feet, but only wipe your head. So it comes down to the interpretation of the ayah. That's one of the reasons why people have got different interpretations, and they've used this to give a fatwa that you must wash your feet also, which you find in other sects. Okay, so as I mentioned, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى كَعْبَيْنِ. Both recitations are accepted by the Ahl Sunnah. Yani, and the ba here, why is the ba mentioned in ru'usikum? Because the ba here is saying you need to do a part of it, not the entire head. The part of your head, and that's where the ba comes. Again, this is grammar issues. All right. Do we have narrations from the school of from Ahl Sunnah that actually confirm the wiping of the feet and not washing of the feet? Yes, we do. So Jalaluddin as-Suyuti is a Sunni mufassir. Al-Dur al-Mansur is a tafsir that he's written. In that tafsir, you find three narrations. The first narration says that the prayer of none of you will be complete. This is a narration from Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The prayer of none of you will be complete unless he performs it as God has commanded, washing his face and arms to his elbows and wiping part of his head and his feet to the Kaaba. So there's already a narration that is mentioned in a Sunni book that explains that you must wipe your feet, not wash your feet. Another narration we have again, Ibn Abbas, he says, people refused but washing the feet, but I do not find in the book of Allah except wiping the feet. In a Sunni narration, Sunni book. Another one, it was said to Anas ibn Malik, Al-Hajjaj delivered a sermon in which he said, wash your faces and arms and wipe on part of your heads and feet. No part of the son of Adam is near to filth than his feet. Thus wash the top and the sole of your feet. That's what Anas, and then what did Anas say? Anas said that Hajjaj lied and God said the truth. Meaning that you can't wash your face. You can't wash your feet. That's what Hajjaj was saying. And Anas ibn Malik is confirming that what Hajjaj was saying was a lie. That you should not wash your feet, you must wipe your feet. So there are three narrations that are found in Sunni books that basically give you proof that there is wiping of the feet that is required. Anas ibn Malik was a servant of the Prophet for 10 years. So he would know how the Prophet used to perform his right? So to end today, what is the final solution when it comes to these contradictory narrations? Principle that everyone should remember. Every time you see a narration and it goes against the Quran, you must reject that narration, right? Whenever there is any contradiction between two groups of ahadith, the group that is according to the Quran must be followed, and the one that is contradictory to the Quran must be rejected. Washing the feet is against the apparent meaning of the ayah in the Quran, because in the Quran he says, Wamsahu arjulakum, not waghsulu arjulakum. Wipe your feet, not wash your feet. So if you find a narration that says you must wash your feet, you compare it to the Quran, you say that it contradicts, you must drop the narration because Quran is true. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. All right, now I would like everyone to, and I want to see if this is possible. Let's see. Where do I have it? I had a quiz. Oh no, but this is, okay, this is for wudu. Can everyone on your phones go on to Slido? If you have your phones, please go to Slido. Go to Google or anywhere, even those on Zoom, please go to Slido. Slido. When you've gone to Slido, you've gone to the page, you must enter a code. Do you see a code is being asked for? The code is 2836220. 6220. Two 836 I hope this works. Okay. 2836220. Okay. One person has joined. 2 people have joined. Hamad has joined. Can you just press OK on this? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 people have joined. Anyone else? Who else is left? Question. You've joined also? He's joining? Okay. All right. Okay, let's start. So on your phones, you have to choose the option. 20 seconds for each question. Only 6 people have responded. 6 votes only. The others should also please provide your answer. So 100% have said from the hairline to the chin, and that is correct. Next question. Read the sentence carefully. Okay. Okay, voting closed. 10%. So one person said the chin doesn't need to be washed. So the chin does need to be washed. And another person said the outer part of the lips doesn't need to be washed. The outer parts do need to be washed because they're part of your face. The part that doesn't need to be washed is the inside of your mouth, the inside of your nostrils. Those areas do not need to be washed. Okay. Third question. So when washing the face, if a small area the size of a needle is left unwashed, what is the ruling? Let's look at the answer. Wudu is invalid. This one is easy. If there's a barrier that prevents water from reaching the skin, what must be done? The barrier must be removed 89%, and 11% said wipe over the barrier. And the answer is the barrier must be removed. You cannot wash over the barrier. It needs to be removed. Next question. In wudu, where should washing of the hands begin? Oh, 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 oh. 9 votes. From the wrist to the fingertips, 22%. Okay, let's reveal the answer. It's from the elbow to the. Where should washing of the hands? Because no, not in wudu. In wudu, the whole part is considered to be your hands. Aidiyakum. Aidi is yad. Yad means hand. That's the thing. In the Quran, it doesn't say arms, it says hands. So in wudu, what is considered the hand? That's why you see when it says ilal marafiq, to the elbow, that whole part is considered to be part of your hand when it comes to washing. Because in the Quran, Allah doesn't say wash your hands and wash your arms. He says wash your hands. What is hands? Wash. Then Allah says ilal marafiq. Your hands go all the way up to the elbow. Okay. Yeah. So for wudu, For wudu, hands is up to the elbow, but yes, conventionally, hands means this part. But in a wudu, even if you just did this part, it wouldn't mean anything because you have to do the whole part. So, trick question. Okay. Only one vote so far, 4 votes. So, this is again similar question. It's the wudu doesn't become invalid because just like if you have a barrier, you must remove the barrier first because you haven't really performed your wudu. So it doesn't become invalid if you don't remove it and you perform your wudu, then your wudu is invalid. But what must be done if dirt under the nails prevents water from reaching? You must remove it and then perform your wudu. Only remove if the dirt is visible, not necessarily. If there's dirt that's under your nails and that part that is covered by the nails is part of your skin that needs to be washed, it doesn't matter whether it's visible or not, it must be cleaned out. Eight seconds. No one should get this wrong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. 11% is width of one finger. It's width of 3 joint fingers. That's the minimum, right? Not width of one finger. Widths, right? This thing is supposed to be 3 fingers together, joined together. Next one. Like this? No, it's supposed to be one hand. No, this one. That would be washing. Read the question carefully. And look at the answers. Okay. Remember, I said if your hair is long, that it requires you to, when you brush your hair, it goes from one side to the other, or if it falls on your shoulders, then you must remove it. But if it's normal hair length, then you don't need to remove it. It is possible if your hand dries up to use fresh water, but you must perform tayammum. So please do look at the options that are there to determine the best answer. Ooh, what happened here? It's frozen. It's frozen. The internet. Why is it frozen? Speech. It's the internet. Is the internet working?
Yeah, maybe because the Wi-Fi is tripping, so like because you guys the most now I refresh it as well. Maybe I think, why don't you try and like refresh it from the outside?
Oh, it's probably because it logged me out. Yeah, there we go. Whoa, whoa, ooh. What's happening here? What is going on? From the heel to the toes. It's like people were not listening. It's from the toes to the ankle joint, not to the top of the foot. And it's definitely not from the heel to the toes. How would you even do heel? No one should get this wrong. Good. From ear to ear. How is that possible? Who's gonna do?
He spoke it more, but yes,
Between the index finger and the middle finger, how are you gonna do that? That's like yeah. So it's between the thumb and the oh sorry that's my bad. It is between the thumb and the middle finger. When I was choosing the right answer, it was I probably just selected that. So it's from the thumb and the middle finger. Okay. 25%. No, I must change that. That answer. It's fine. We'll see what happens. I don't even know if there's like a leaderboard. We'll see. Hmm. You don't wipe on your face, you wash your face. So if there's uncertainty, you must wash that part again, not wipe over it. Please look at the answer carefully, the answers. Though makeup should be wiped off is yes, correct, but it is not the best answer because you must remove anything that prevents water from reaching the skin. Very good. Last one. Yep. Very good. Reveal leaderboard. Dun, 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 dun.
You know where to be by that guy's going to team.
Yeah.
So that could be wrong as well. Because
so you got 13. So everyone who got that answer, just add one extra to your mark. If you had gotten that one. So we're going to be doing these quizzes every session after the session, because I know it makes it interesting.
Got a message from early Mehdi Rizvi. He said cooking.
Cooking. What about cooking? Okay, he's cooking.
Yeah.
He's on fire. He's a leader. Okay, cool. All right. Fine, guys. As long as you. There's this Ali maybe, and then there's that Ali maybe. There's two people who joined.
I think it's the same when it's 1 out of 6.
All right. But this was cool. It was fun. Yeah, okay, we'll do this again.
Wait, you got 7 for the, and then you got 14. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? It's 10 o'clock. If no questions, thank you very much for participating. Inshallah, we will continue next week with. So we've done wudu. Now we'll go down to prayers now. Salat. Who's Ali Mehdi? Who's Ali Mehdi? Yours.